So the same feeling that I had come over me on the youth program was like, what if my wife wanted somewhere to fish? What if one of my 3 daughters wanted somewhere to fish? What if, some high school angler that I've, seen grow up in the sport, got better in the sport, just disappeared after that? Like, that would make me feel terrible. So it was an easy decision for me and my wife to join hands with Craig and Jennifer and take this on, honestly.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing in the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Master Captain Angie Scott.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast. At long last, the 2024 LBAA Women's Pro Bass Tour season has been announced, and I'm so happy to welcome Travis Burch to the podcast to talk all about the exciting bucket list lakes that we're going to be traveling to next season for 2024. But before we get into that, I want to make an announcement. I've been doing this podcast every week since it began in 2018. And do pretty much everything myself, from sourcing the guests to editing, obviously recording, writing the show notes, pushing it all out to all the major podcast platforms, running the website, and also promoting the episodes on social media. Although I do get some help from some amazing partners such as iBass 360 and Stealth Rod Holders, which they actually just rebranded to Stealth Mode, so definitely go check that out. But as you can imagine, it's incredibly time-consuming between that and my full-time job with Freedom Boat Club, which actually pays the bills, and tournament fishing. I've decided to change things up just a little bit. We just got down to our winter home in Fort Myers, and I'm looking forward to many exciting fishing adventures while we're here over the next several months, both freshwater and saltwater. With this change in scenery, I thought it might be a nice time to take a break and kind of reformat the show and start releasing new episodes in seasons. So while we're here, my plan is I'm going to continue recording new content, meeting new and amazing ladies in the outdoors, and get all these conversations ready for release throughout the 2024 season, which makes sense to coincide with the tournament fishing schedule. And of course, I'll be sprinkling in updates and spur-of-the-moment content as we go. So with all that said, this is going to be the last episode for a bit. We'll start bringing you fresh content again at the beginning of March 2024. So very important. I ask 3 things of you. If you're not already subscribed, definitely go subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. That way you'll get alerted when the new season starts and you're not going to miss any great episodes. And who knows, I may decide to release an episode here and there just for fun. So you'll get alerts for that in between now and the beginning of March. 2, if you have any guest ideas, someone who would be a great fit to be on the show. It can be anywhere from somebody just getting started to somebody who has a super inspirational story and anything in between. Reach out to me either on social media or send me an email, Angie@thewomanangler.com. I'd love to hear from you and hear your ideas. Or you yourself might be interested in being a guest on the show for the 2024 season. So just let me know. And the third thing I ask you is just make sure that you're a part of the Woman Angler and Adventurer private Facebook group. I'll put a link to that in the show notes for this episode. It's in this group where I'll be sharing glimpses of content to come for the 2024 season and other important updates along the way. So from the bottom of my heart, thanks everyone for your support and for making 2023 such an epic year for me and the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. All that said, without further ado, get ready to meet another member of our new leadership team for the LBAA and find out where all we're going to be going in 2024. Enjoy. All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. We got a little bit of a sneak peek at the 2024 Lady Bass Anglers Association season when we had Craig LaPointe on a few weeks ago while we were still at Bull Shoals. But now I'm excited to finally be able to talk to Travis Burch. We were kind of holding this off until we knew what the actual schedule was going to look like. And also maybe some of the rules, that are in place. There were a couple changes, and all that information, at least to the anglers, has been released. But the schedule is out publicly, and we're really excited about it. Going to a couple new places for me, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But Travis, welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind just to start out with kind of introducing yourself, and a little bit of your background and your career in the bass fishing world.
All right, sounds good. Well, about 6 or 7 years ago, I've been bass fishing my whole life. I grew up, pond fishing and jumping from boat to boat as much as I could with my cousins and friends and family and stuff like that. And then about 6 years ago, a opportunity presented myself to help a family member out that had bought a brand new bass boat and had owned it about a year and a half and had only put 40 hours on it, but he had lost his really good paying job due to a government shutdown situation, not COVID related, but previous to that, a power plant got shut down. And so he needed to sell his boat, and he was going to sell it back for cost to what he owed on it to the dealership. And I ended up making a spur of the moment decision with my wife to go help them out. And we drove all the way to South Carolina and back in a 36-hour period to pick up the boat and take over payments and got all that paperwork done on the back end of transferring ownership, that we were able to help them out. And that led to me boat captaining for the youth and fishing tournaments. And when I started boat captaining for the youth, the current youth director was resigning at the end of his term, and everybody looked at me. And I was in no way, shape, or form thinking about ever running tournaments in my life. And I drove home that 3-hour drive from that drive and decided that I needed to talk to my wife about it. And I got home and I was like, what if we saved a kid from a mental health issue or suicide or, possible incarceration, or maybe this kid goes on to graduate high school, or this kid goes on to be an entrepreneur because we were able to touch them, touch their lives in a positive manner, and give them some kind of an influence. And we all know what a day on the water does for us mentally. It just releases all those endorphins, and the stress just seems like it leaves your body as soon as you get on the water. So I took over the youth program in the state of Kansas, and we doubled the growth in the first year just by trying to be more present on social media, YouTube, stuff like that. And I just fell in love with it. And so 2 years later, we opened the World Fishing Tour, which is an adult team trail, with the intentions of trying to fix some things that, in my opinion, are kind of wrong in the bass fishing world. I feel like we're traveling all over the world to fish these tournaments, and the prize pools are just getting worse and worse, and these big organizations are taking more and more from the anglers, and seems like the sponsorship opportunities are kind of going away in a negative way. They're not as strong as they used to be in fishing. So we wanted to create a higher ROI tournament, and I had a huge poker background of running tournaments in the poker world and traveling around with ESPN and Fox Sports and doing all their televised events. And so I got to see how, the best of the best run tournaments in the poker world. And I was like, after fishing the Bassmaster Open on Pickwick and having the greatest practice I have ever had, and then having the worst day one of everything go wrong possible, I was like, man, I would rebuy into this tournament. And that's where the idea of the World Fishing Tour came from. And that's where me and Craig crossed paths at Bull Shoals Lake last year. And while I was sitting at dinner, Craig LaPointe at Bull Shoals Lake at Anchor Point Resort mentioned that he was going to fish my tournament one of the qualifying days the next day, and said that he could not fish championship day, which is where all the money is. So you, in my World Fishing Tour trail, you qualify on the first day that you fish. If you qualify, you make it to day 2, which is a championship day. It's kind of like an entire season of fishing in 1 week. So you're allowed to fish all week to try to qualify for this championship. And he told me he couldn't fish the championship because he had another schedule obligation of a Fishers and Men tournament, but he wanted to support us because we came mid-lake. And so that right there just told me how good of a person Craig was. And so me and my wife started eating dinner over there every night. And Steve, my bump board guy / right-hand man when it comes to running tournaments, we went over there every night. And that's when the idea of LBAA got mentioned to me. Craig said that Secret and Cheryl had mentioned to him that LBAA was likely going to not continue on if they couldn't find somebody to take over. And Craig said, would you be interested in taking over LBAA with me? He's like, I wouldn't be interested if you're not interested, and you probably wouldn't be interested if I'm not interested. And that's basically how the conversation went. And now we're here.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad that you guys stepped in to keep this alive. I think it's really important to have a place for ladies to go that might not be comfortable fishing in like a co-ed situation. And there's you've got the youth connection there. There's a lot more young ladies getting involved in the high school and going into college fishing even. And I think to have a landing place for them once they get through those years, if they want to continue to fish competitively, it's so important to have the LBA. Talk a little bit about why you decided to do this, because it's a lot of work.
It's a ton of work. Tournament directors do not get enough credit. It'd be the behind the scenes people involved with tournament staffs do not get enough credit. That's for sure. It kind of goes back to the same feeling that I had when I left the youth tournament, that state championship, where the guy, Richard Heflin, had announced that he was going to resign from the youth program. He had been running it like 6 years. You just kind of feel like something comes over you. It's almost like God's trying to tell you that this is the path you're supposed to lead. And I just started thinking about it with my wife. I was like, what if you wanted to fish professionally or as a co-angler? Would you ever jump on the opens? And she's like, absolutely not. I'm not jumping in a strange man's boat, even if you were at the tournament with me. And then I started thinking about like all my female anglers that have made it through the youth program. And you actually got to meet one of them at Bull Shoals, Abby Keeney, who runs a, she does videographer work for a lot of big bass fishermen now.
Great work.
I brought her down to Bull Shoals. I brought her down to Bull Shoals I know she had the free time, and I was like, hey, come on down. And she was the same way. She was telling me, she would never jump on a strange guy's boat, go fish the opens or BFL, stuff like that. So it's the same avenue of not necessarily avenue. So the same feeling that I had come over me on the youth program was like, what if my wife wanted somewhere to fish? What if one of my 3 daughters wanted somewhere to fish? What if, some high school angler that I've, seen grow up in the sport, got better in the sport, just disappeared after that? Like, that would make me feel terrible. So it was an easy decision for me and my wife to join hands with Craig and Jennifer and take this on, honestly.
That's awesome. Well, I think one of the challenges has been, and there's been quite a bit of excitement around women in bass fishing here with Bassmaster featuring them in the magazine. And so, things are starting to feel like, I don't know, there's a buzz going on right now. But I think one of the challenges has been just a lot of these young ladies, they don't know that the LBA exists. And so I know one of your big goals is to really hype up the brand and get the word out there. And you've already done a lot of great work with having Abby at that last tournament and getting a lot more content, updated content. I know, budget has always been an issue and getting sponsors on board and things like that to support women in fishing. But I feel like the tide's still, kind of starting to change a little bit. It's still, I'm sure, a huge challenge, but talk a little bit about your vision as far as that goes, getting the word out there, getting new sponsors on board.
Yeah, I mean, definitely social media has to be a huge presence. Sorry, not preference. It has to be a huge presence in it, because without social media, you're not going to attract that 16 to, probably 35 to 40-year-old female I mean, they've grown up on social media that, millennial or younger age has their phone in their hands or their iPad in their hands pretty much at all times. So I had heard of LBAA, knowing some people that had fished with it in the past back before it probably even started, probably when Bassmaster used to own the Women's Pro Tour or whatever. But I knew there was an avenue out there, but I never really saw much content. And it's hard to produce a lot of content. I mean, it's not cheap. So, but the key is having updated B-roll and constantly being able to pull from that footage and re-edit and repost and just constantly be front of mind awareness, because in advertising, it takes like 12 to 18 touches before you even remember a brand. And so if you only see an LBA once or twice a year and you were a fisherman fishing high school, are you going to remember that when it comes time to graduate, where you want to go fish? Probably not. Mm-hmm. So it's just about that. And then sponsorship side of things. I mean, there's a great list of existing sponsors, and we hope every single one of them comes back on. We're still in talks with all of them. And then we've already been in talks with some new businesses. Baitworks has already signed on. They're going to give the biggest bag of the week, nice. Gift cards on the co-angling side and the pro side. Plus, they have another company called Wrap It Up in Springfield, Missouri, and they are going to wrap the 32-foot trailer to make it look brand new again and really clean it up. Cool. To make it look professional again. Not that it didn't look professional, but it needs to have that clean modern day look and not just pieces stuck on a trailer.
That's exciting. Can't wait to see that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that was one of the first impressions I had was, this should be a pro look, and we need to clean that up a little bit and make it look even cleaner. So
very cool. So let's get into the schedule. Let's talk about that. And there's some exciting lakes. I know I've only been fishing with the ladies since the end of 2020. So, I'm not, super familiar with the whole history there of where all they've been, but, I know I'm excited. So let's talk about the first stop.
Toledo Bend, Texas, the first time I ever cashed a check in a tournament. So nice. It's got a little bit of a heartstring for me there. So Toledo Bend, I wanted to go somewhere. Obviously, when it comes to tournament world, you're trying to get funded and go to cities and bring revenue to cities and all that fun stuff. With us taking over so late, we wanted to work with lakes that would probably attract women to want to go fish almost as a bucket list, not necessarily just the tournament side of things. Mm-hmm. And so Toledo and Sam Rayburn were two lakes that we were really actively targeting for that first stop. And thanks to Fin and Feather Resort there on Toledo Bend on the Texas side in Hemp Hill, Texas, where they're gonna let us launch there and make all the festivities of the week work. And we're going to be very excited to be there March 7th and 8th. We could probably see every pattern pre-spawn. Maybe depending on weather temps and water temps, we might even find a few spawners in March. So yeah. It is Texas. So you know how those waves can change, and there's multiple waves of spawners.
Oh yeah. Well, so that's March 7th through the 8th. So that one for me personally, I think, and this is new this year where we've added another tournament. So, anglers have the option to drop a tournament and not be penalized for that. And so being with my schedule that we're still in Florida till the end of March, I'm pretty sure that's probably going to be one that we'll have to drop because we would logistically have to drive from Fort Myers to Nashville, get the boat, go down to Texas, and then go back to Nashville and go back to Florida. And then we're only there at that point for a couple more weeks and would have to pack up camp and go back to Nashville. It's just a lot in a very short amount of time. So, but I know a lot of ladies are really excited. I had Denise Sestada on last week, and she's, clearly excited about Toledo Bend. And I think East Texas lady anglers are going to kind of be part of that, right? How is that working?
Yeah, so we talked to all the federations while we were at Bull Shoals, and wanted to talk about how we could help grow their federations and help grow the LBAA on the same time. So Denise was clued in on the idea immediately and was like, heck yeah, that's a great idea. And she's a big part. She's 100% the reason why we're going to Toledo. She made that connection with Fin and Feather. She made it all work for us. She knew the owners, she knew the managers, all that fun stuff. But they're going to have their tournament on the day after we're there. So we're already there set up with the stage. We're already there with all the LBAA members. So it lets the women that came in, you might have a bad day one and have a decent day two, and then be like, hey, I want to go ahead and fire the East Texas tournament. Or on the flip side, the East Texas ladies that would normally be practicing on Thursday or Friday might just take off the whole week of vacation and go ahead and dip their toes in the water a little bit with LBAA.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a nice thing to do every year, just to go to a federation market and be able to, like, right now there's 4 federations, right? So if we could go to a federation market at least every 4 years, if not more, I think it would allow people to cross over and dip their toes in the water a little bit.
Awesome. Well, we'll be, I'm sure I'll have a large amount of FOMO that week, but I'll be cheering all the ladies on. Things could change, you never know, but that's kind of.
I mean, I tried to think about your schedule, because I mean, most likely you're probably gonna go to the Bassmaster Classic, because most people try to, and it's only 2 weeks apart, so you can just stop in Nashville, grab the boat, and head on west, and then head north right after you're done.
I want to pause for a moment and give a quick shout out to my friends over at Stealth Rod Holders. They first caught my attention at ICAST a few years ago when they were showcasing their well-designed and strong quick-release rod holders made of glass-reinforced nylon. Their patented technology grips the rod handle, so no more fumbling with locking collars. This allows you to get that quick hook set and land your personal best. And if you buy the best rods like I do, I mean, St. Croix rods are the best rods on earth, you want to protect it with the best rod holder, which is hands down Stealth. And Stealth rod holders come with a lifetime warranty. Check them out at stealthrodholders.com. Yeah, so let's talk about stop number 2, Bull Shoals, Arkansas. Of course, we just wrapped up there for the Classic, but this is going to be a different time of year that we've not been there in the spring. So this is April 11th through the 12th at Anchor Point. So we are super excited to go back there and have some good food at the restaurant and do some fun spring fishing. Talk a little bit about that one.
So kind of the same concept. I mean, we put the schedule together super late because we took over ownership there basically at the Classic. So trying to find lakes that, would help us, offset the travel expense and stuff like that. We had to pick lakes that were, good fishing lakes and the option. So with Craig being one of the owners, obviously he's going to help, host the staff. And Bull Shoals Lake is just a phenomenal lake. It fished a little tough during the Classic. I think we were there a week or two earlier than what the traditional fall pattern is. Mm-hmm. But Bull Shoals in April and May is lights out. So we'll have a really good pre-spawn pattern with fish ready to move back. And depending on water temps and flood levels, like you were just there at the Classic, it was probably the lowest I've seen Bull Shoals in years, where traditionally in April and May, it's actually pretty high water. So it gets a lot of fun when those bushes are in play, not only the deep structure.
Yep, that's probably going to suit my fishing a little better than the Classic situation did. So excited to see what the conditions are like and get back out there.
It is also, after hosting the first event, we felt like it'd be a good get everybody to one location where we know Craig's facilities. Everybody's been there before. Probably have a good meal, a good meeting, and just talk about what they liked about Toledo, what they didn't like about Toledo, so that way we can start kind of having a meeting for going forward for 2025, because 2025 has a ton of interest from lakes already. So I know we've talked privately offline, and I can't announce anything, but it's going to be a fun season, I think, in 2025 already.
Yeah, we're excited about that, and I'm sure. I think the plan is to kind of announce that earlier than normal. To kind of generate some more interest and get ladies, help out ladies that are planning their schedules and stuff like that. So that will be exciting. So we'll definitely share that on the podcast whenever that's available. And so then we've got stop number 3. This is a lake I've never fished before, and I'm really excited to check it out. I was looking at the map, and it looks like there's a lot of great options there. So Table Rock Lake in Missouri. That one is May 9th through the 10th. So let's kind of give a little preview of that one.
So Table Rock has a special place in my heart just because I grew up I didn't grow up down there, but my family vacationed there all the time. And Table Rock's just a phenomenal fishery from smallmouth to largemouth to spotted bass. It's on the Missouri-Arkansas border, so it's pretty centrally located, especially to the majority of the LBAA members. I mean, most of the members are Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma type region. So it's another good centrally located lake. It's not far away from Bull Shoals, so those people that are traveling across the country, I'm sure we can make plans to be able to, host boats so you're not towing them back and forth if there's no tournament in between, stuff like that. And then the Bar M Resort, a new ownership took them over about a year and a half ago, and they wanted to have a new focus on attracting anglers. And so they reached out to me when I had posted in one of the local Facebook groups looking for a host, because the current host just sold that I'd been using for the World Fishing Tour had just sold, and it's a lot of going through chain of commands and trying to get approvals. And I was like trying to get the schedule out before it's November was going to be impossible if I had to go through all the chain of commands at all these lakes to try to get any kind of funding or help. And so Bar M Resort reached out to me. The lady and her husband are phenomenal to work out. There's a campground that literally, it's like a horseshoe almost. There's a RV setup that's like almost in a horseshoe. There's a center courtyard area that used to be their like pre-owners tent camping area basically, which they're turning that into like a nice courtyard and boat parking facility. Eventually they're going to allow us to park the boats there while the tournament's launched and all that stuff, basically in the old primitive camping facility. And then it's surrounded by cabins as well, cabins and houses. So
cool.
It's and they got their own ramp, and it's I think a 12-slip facility. It's real close to a lot of restaurants and stuff just up the hill in the Kimberling City Reed Springs area. So it's just going to be a fun deal. They have a covered pavilion and all that fun stuff, so we can have a meeting and probably a cookout because May should be nice weather.
Should be.
Yeah, right. I mean, it last year, the first 2 weeks of May was lights out at Table Rock. So we also wanted to try to time the fishing right to give the ladies a great first impression of Table Rock.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I saw that on the schedule and immediately got excited because I've heard a lot about Table Rock and never been there. So it's always fun to go to new places as well. But one lake I have fished before because it's close relatively to Nashville, and excited just about that fact alone that I won't have to travel as far as I typically do for a tournament. But this is a bucket list lake for a lot of people. We get to go to Gunnersville in June.
Yeah, June wasn't my first priority, but when you're putting together the schedule and trying to make it all work, when you get the dates from the lakes, and that was one of their availabilities, was that June 20th and 21st date. Was talking to, I forget the lady's name, so apologize there, but was talking to Goose Pond Colony Resort and Goose Pond Landing there about putting the tournament on, and she was like, we have no dates available until like 2025. And I was like, well, that's the great thing about the LBAA is we actually come during the week. And the light bulb went off, and she was like, I got this date and this date. And I was like, well, that date will work for us. That gives us a month spacing between events. And she was like, it will be a little warm, so make sure your anglers have ice and all that fun stuff. Mm-hmm. And so we don't have any kind of a fish kill or anything like that. But it's gonna be awesome because Gunnersville is no different than like Toledo. It's a bucket list lake for most people that have never been there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited to get back to Gunnersville. Always good to have an excuse to go there. That's for sure. The management of that fishery is amazing. The type of bass that are there. I know a biologist that he's kind of talked to me a little bit about the strain of bass in Gunnersville and where they come from and how they breed them, I guess. And it's unlike any other That's for sure.
I'm definitely excited to be there.
Very cool. Well, that brings us to the Classic Championship. This is a new lake for me again on the schedule. Hopefully I'll qualify and get to go. But we're going to Grand Lake, Oklahoma in October. So tell us a little bit about that one.
Well, Grand Lake is a phenomenal fishery. I don't know, a light bulb went off for me when the idea even came about of us taking over ownership or taking over running LBAA. And so I have connections with Grand Lake already because I run tournaments down there all the time for World Fishing Tour in high school and junior high and stuff like that. So I reached out to him planning my tournaments next year for World Fishing Tour. And he's like, hey, I have this date in February available for World Fishing Tour. And I have this date available in October if you'd rather do World Fishing Tour then. And that's when I messaged him. I was like, hey, this is happening. It's not official yet, but would Grand be interested in hosting the LBAA again? And I didn't know LBAA had never been there. It was actually the Women's Pro Tour that had been there right before they changed hands. But I mean, it's the same group of anglers.
Right.
But so I was talking to Brent there at Grove, Oklahoma, and he was on board for bringing my tournament trail back for the World Fishing Tour, and he was 100% on board for bringing the ladies there. And then there's a brand new resort built there. I mean, it hasn't even technically opened yet. It's going to be open in the next week or two once the final permits get approved. But the lodge at the Grand Lakes, if you have a chance, look it up. There's a couple of these versions across the country. I believe Kentucky Lake and Pickwick both have one. But you're living in paradise there, and you got what, a bird in the background?
I do, yeah. I'm surprised awesome. You heard that.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous of where you're set up for your podcast. So
yeah,
so Grand Lake signed on board. They were more than happy to host the Classic. They thought it was really cool to be able to host the Bassmaster Classic in 1 year. And then the same year, they're also going to host the Bass Nation Championship. And then in the same year, they're also going to host the Ladies Bass Championship. So, like, they literally have probably the three biggest events in fishing this year when it comes to different, you got the working blue collar kind of tour of the Bass Nation Championship. You have the ladies only tour in the LBAA. And then you also have the Bassmaster Classic all in the same year. So they were 100% on board for that.
Nice. Well, I'm just now thinking about making my plans to go to the Bassmaster Classic. And now that I know our championship is on that lake, I might definitely try to make that work just so I can get a little preview since I've never been there before. But that's
right. And that was another reason for the plan too, is like, there's going to be so much coverage this year because of the Classic on that lake that, the ladies that have never been there before should have a little bit of a clue before they get there.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then plus John Stewart, I don't know if anybody, in the LBA really knows John Stewart. He actually used to run some of the tournaments for the women's side or help run them for Bass when he first started at Bass. And then he is no longer with Bass now and opened that resort called the Lodge at Grand Lake Cherokee. And it's just a phenomenal setup. It's covered parking for the boats and the trucks. You never have to walk outside if it's raining to your room.
Oh, wow.
So I would highly recommend booking your room if you plan on fishing the Classic, which if you're planning on fishing 3 events, I would assume that most people will qualify. I would go ahead and reserve your rooms now at the Lodge because it's just an amazing facility.
Very cool. Well, we're excited. Lots to look forward to. Lots of growth to look forward to, I hope. And just thank you again and Craig for taking this on. It's like I said earlier, super important to have this platform. And so we're just excited to see where everything goes and excited for 2024. And hopefully we'll get some new anglers. I do want to mention, we talked about this when Don Day was on and when Terry Cindric was on. But the LBA is open to anybody. So don't be intimidated by the tagline Women's Pro Bass Tour. Any skill level is welcome. If you've never fished a tournament before, come, dip your toe in the water, come to one event, come as a co-angler. all the pros that I know are really great with working with new anglers and helping. So it's just a really great format, and being all female, that kind of takes some of that intimidation away, I think, for ladies. So anything to that, or any final thoughts?
Yeah, we can't announce it yet, but we have some awesome deals coming down. I haven't went through all the sponsors yet. I talked about Baitworks, but Wholesale Batteries signed on. They are a distributor for all kinds of battery lines. They signed on as a sponsor, and then we have a sponsor that we cannot name yet, but it's really close to being able to be named. So I'm hoping we can release it the next week or two. Cool. But we're working on like a Rising Star Award, where a person that tries boating for the first time will have an option to get paid that's never boated before. And then also we're working on, we haven't named it yet, but kind of like, going to the next level to maybe from high school or college to the co-angling side of things.
Okay.
One of those kind of sponsorships. So that way we can attract that new don't really want to say new blood, but that new angler into the program and let them actually dip their toes in the water for the first time and see that, hey, this is actually a lot of fun. It's a, kind of a family-like friendly atmosphere. All the ladies, that was one thing that kind of overwhelmed me at the Bull Shoals during the meeting was the banquet / meeting was like everybody was talking to each other and having a good time and cutting up. And that doesn't happen on the opens at a meeting when they used to do live meetings. And, it's, 4 or 5 guys would talk to each other, or, 2 or 3 girls would talk to each other and stuff like that. But it wasn't a whole room full of like a family friendly atmosphere. So I would highly encourage people to come try it for the first time. And we're going to do everything we can to make that even more feasible for the first time angler to show up, or the first time code a boater to make that jump.
Yeah, that's exciting. I hope that works out. We'll be watching for that announcement. So you can follow the Lady Bass Anglers on social media. We even have a TikTok now. So go subscribe to that, and YouTube, Facebook, all that stuff. And the website, ladybassanglers.com, is where you can go check it all out, get registered. Anywhere else people should go?
No, that's basically it. All the social media platforms, and then the website. We're in the process of getting it cleaned up a little bit. We just put the website or the schedule on there last week. Registration is going to open on the 6th. We'll have that up on the website, and if not, it also have the links up on the social media channels as well. So we'll open registration up on Monday, 9 a.m. Central, November 6th.
Perfect. Well, I'll put links to all that in the show notes for this episode to make it super easy for people to go check all that out. And thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to talk about this. And I look forward to seeing you at both shows, I guess, if not sooner.
Okay, awesome. I hope you can twist it to see you at Toledo instead.
Well, will see.
Big fish.
Yeah, I know. Texas is amazing for sure. That's where I got my PB, so it's definitely tempting.
Right. That was another reason why we chose that lake, was the potential of B-roll footage in the future of women just. I mean, you saw the Bassmaster cover last week that came out, right? Like,
yes.
If we can get some more footage like that of women holding up record-breaking bass, I mean, that would be awesome.
Absolutely.